stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the minutes. Oh,
Unless you found something.
he's confused.
Oh.
I'm not confused, but I oh, where is it?
Over Dr. Meeker.
Yeah.
Everybody underneath him.
Did I put it wrong?
I don't think so.
Well, Dr. Meeker's listed as what he does, but the people underneath him,
Oh, you want me to put investigator?
yeah,
Okay.
that might be all right. It don't matter to me, but I know what's going on, but to the general
Yeah.
public.
I can do that. I'll tweak it.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 3. Rick, I'm gonna let you take over that one.
Well, I made numerous phone calls yesterday, and I had a few thanks but no thanks. And bottom line is I would like to appoint for the supervisors' representatives to the compensation board, Mike Barnes and Mark Zarodnik. You know these people, Gary? Mike Barnes is with Barnes Furniture and Barnes Real Estate.
Okay, I don't know him.
Both people out in the working
And who's the
population.
other one?
Mark Zarodnik.
Jennifer's husband. I'll second that.
I call for a vote.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Aye.
Aye.
Go. Okay. I think sometimes people are concerned that they get put on a board, there's gonna be more than just what meets the eye. Yeah. Got their foot in the door and. Thank you, Tracy, for giving me a copy of this.
No problem.
It's, are they going for bids on this?
Is that conservation? Did you see that email with that?
Yes, I did.
So I figured you could follow up then, or scan
What
that.
I was gonna do, I can get everything except the estimated cost, cause that's what the bids are gonna come in.
Maybe if I explain that, maybe that's something I can do down there.
Well, either that or I can throw a wild figure,
Yeah, I haven't responded to it, so.
cause I don't wanna start insuring nothing that's not there yet. It's kinda foolish.
Right. I think that's what she asked when it was gonna start.
Yeah. So I thought, depending on how today goes, I'll slip out to, Shelby, and we'll iron them all out, and like I said, the worst scenario, the square footage is easy to figure. Got an email from the insurance company.
Okay,
Start the same thing, you know what I mean?
sure.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we're ahead of ourselves on the insurance, but I want, when we do break ground, we got insurance covered.
Probably
Yeah.
really don't need to insure the Smith.
Well, it kind of depends on how this whole thing goes. I mean, if it goes to a contractor, usually they have things insured
Yeah.
until it's turned over to us.
Well, yes, but
However,
since we're gonna be, or Myron is gonna be the general
there
contractor.
you
on the
go.
deal.
Okay, then we would do it
Yes.
from day one.
But the way, we did the same thing here,
Sure.
we were the general, but the only problem was, not problem, everybody had to have a copy of proof of the subcontractor's insurance on file.
Correct.
So you could almost say the project is doubly insured.
Yeah, well, it's the liability issue
Yes.
is really what it amounts to.
Yep.
So, and or if it caught fire.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, this
Or
is
burned
just the
down.
start of the project, you know what I mean? And again, I wanna get ahead of it, so,
Well, and you can do it in increments, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
To start with, we're gonna have $50,000
yep,
invested.
correct,
And then a month later, we're gonna have 250.
yep.
So,
How much is it gonna cost?
We don't know yet, because we gotta get all the bids in for each project. Don't have a clue. Not a realistic clue. I can throw a figure out there,
and the reason I asked the other day regarding these being outside restrooms, they're not shower houses, is that correct?
but they are gonna have showers in them.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
If you go, like I said, she's got it, it's a booklet thicker than this right now.
Sure.
That's printed off at the conservation. Otherwise, you can go on the webpage, the county webpage, conservation webpage, and look at everything. It's 100 pages.
Okay. This is just a,
Yeah, that's just one of,
yeah, it says
99.
electrical notes.
yes.
Okay.
You see, everything's got its own bid package all the way across.
Correct.
So,
Okay. Good. Very good. Well,
They really need a shower there with the swimming hole
They're
there.
gonna have one.
Yeah, I'm glad we are, because
The old shower house after this building is up and going down, that's gonna be it.
I know,
And that ain't heated.
well, when it's 100 degrees, you don't need a heat.
Or,
I don't think there's showers much right now.
I think we're meeting with Mark next Tuesday afternoon. He said we're doing overkill for the septic
Septic.
leach field, yeah, sand. He said we're doing overkill. That's good news.
Well, then if they needed to do an addition on down the road, they wouldn't have to necessarily go back in and enlarge it. Yeah, I get it.
It's kind of goofy because, let's say you just got 2 showers and 2 toilets. They don't know how many people are using
Well,
them.
that's just hard to estimate,
Yeah,
you know. Of course, Friday and Saturday, there'll be a lot of people. Tuesday through Thursday, no.
and then if the weather is crappy, you don't have nobody, and whenever the weather's good,
Memorial Weekend, Labor Day weekend.
yeah.
So you told both those members about the meeting tonight then?
I did.
Okay.
I did, yes.
Melinda can get their contact tonight.
The only thing, should a guy give them the information,
I,
or have you forward some of that?
I've talked to both of them about information, which, like the ranking information, et cetera. And after the meeting, I will take and get a copy of it, because I'd like to have a copy.
Okay.
And then, I can take it to Mike Barnes, and I'll explain it to him.
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously, Jennifer had a copy.
correct.
Well, that's what Melinda said, she could walk over to Barnes too. His email, so she can send it.
Whatever, I intend to go down and see him.
Okay.
So, okay.
Oh, there's a meeting tonight?
Yes. Mhm.
You have an landfill meeting tonight, don't you?
No, next week.
Okay, I tell Erica.
Yeah,
This is
no,
good.
next week.
We're correct for that.
Third, yeah, 19th. Always the third Thursday at 6:30. And speaking of that, if you got her email,
Yeah.
you should send that to Harry. The landfill.
Okay, third Thursday.
Third Thursday of every month at 6:30.
They got all the cement work done down there?
No. Winter yet.
How much more they got to cement?
The other half of the driveway.
That's it.
Yeah.
No. We rent that ground down there. And it's really hard to take care of it properly, because our lease is only 2 years.
Ask for a longer lease.
Yeah,
The first thing say no.
well, you can't fertilize it properly. You put fertilizer on, you can't get it out in
Right.
2 years.
Right.
All right, I'm just gonna copy Eric on the email to her now.
Yeah.
I guess nobody cares. I mean, it's kind of a tough deal to fertilize it. And then I don't know.
How many years have you rented it?
Me?
Yeah.
Brian rented it. Brian rents it.
Okay, well,
This will be the 4th year.
okay.
I should have to disclose that in the audit though, because it's the landfill, so it's separate, but I didn't realize that either.
Brian rents it, so.
Right, but sometimes we're just still supposed to disclose if there's family parties involved with different things,
So he uses a
so.
joint equipment, whatever. A lot of times I'm sitting in the seat,
Morning, sir.
but he's working all the time too, so.
Thanks for agreeing last minute for me. Figured I'd make you guys' morning worthwhile.
That's right.
You just made it busy.
Hey, it'll go fast.
After I said yes to you, I had forgot about meeting this afternoon.
Even after the 11:30 one then?
Yeah,
Oh boy, sorry. I know the feeling.
but all right, things may go up quickly. All right, Myron, you start in whenever you feel comfortable.
They have your printouts.
Do you have a preference on how you want to look at this, go through this? I know Tuesday, I guess you were kind of asking for major increases, it sounded like, or something, or major differences type of thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought we could start off with. And, you know, like your first one on land, you're almost doubling what you want.
Well, I haven't bought that land north of Blairstown and I want to widen. And the most recent auctions I see on Benton County farm ground would imply to me that that ground's going to cost over a lot to do that project. And so that's why that increase there.
How's that coming as far as that cemetery is concerned? Is that gonna hold you up, or is that?
I'd like to think it's not gonna hold me up in the sense that we're gonna have to avoid doing any work around that. We have, I don't know if I want to, I'd say better than a rough idea. I mean, with that ground penetration project that the University of Iowa did, it's identified exactly some locations. There is some concern from his standpoint whether it extends a little bit beyond what some people think there. But I'd like to think that if it does expand a little bit, you're not talking major distance, you know, it would be close proximity to that. So, you know, if you added 50 feet, 100 feet, something away from that spot that you said you're not gonna disturb, I think you would be out of the danger area at that point.
How close is it to the road, the cemetery? Sounds like it could possibly interfere to some degree.
In the exact area where there are evidence to indicate some burial sites, I'd like to do some very minimal shaping just to maybe slope the back slope, but really probably wouldn't suggest disturbing it any more than that, just in case there's some more information, more stuff there that we wouldn't want to disturb and unearth. For the most part, I'd say you're gonna treat it like a house that might be close to the road, you know, you're not gonna, or at least I'm not proposing to take a house out with this project, even if, you know, we're gonna be disturbing the area. It's not that critical of a project, but it's certainly benefit, if we can, you know, widen that shoulder, widen that right of way, and maybe eliminate the need for that to be the first priority when you get a major wind with snow.
When do you plan on starting all this stuff?
Well, I'd hope to have somebody else in my office that could just work on that, you know? And since that hasn't happened,
Yeah.
my thought here the last few weeks as this budget activity was going on is that maybe it's just time to pursue hiring somebody to do it and get it done because, you know, hopefully I'm gonna find a replacement, but that project would be beneficial and it's not something that I need to just sit back and wait till my staff shows up from a position standpoint. You know, I had talked with an acquisition company here a year ago and had started doing a little bit of work with them. I'm doing some of the research to make sure we had all of the proper property owners named for all of that work. They could also then assist with the acquisition, but putting some design aspect to it. My vision of that project is just like we did south of Van Horn, Highway 30. It's, in the sense of nothing major dirt work type of deal, but buying an extra 17 feet of right of way going from 33 to 50 feet on each side of the road and using that 17 feet behind what used to be a fence line for most of those property owners, moving that dirt over the shoulders to widen it. And then, you know, reshape the ditch bottom and the back slope. And probably 80% of that roadway, that would be very straightforward.
Now, the high line coming in off of 30, who would be responsible for moving the poles? Because you're definitely gonna move them, right?
All of the poles that would be in the right of way would be the utilities responsibility and the utilities cost.
Good.
The transmission line that is 1.5 miles south of 30 that runs parallel to 30, there is a pole there on the east side of the road that's fairly close, probably right about at that 33 feet. Whether that would need to be moved or not, but actually one of my meetings today is with ITC this afternoon, and they are reviewing and looking to upgrade their, if I'm understanding right, their transmission line from Marshalltown to Cedar Rapids.
Mhm.
And they're looking at the area in it. Between that, where to put that line. They have an existing line that runs through Benton County, a mile and a half north of Highway 30, and they have one a mile and a half south. I don't know if they're replacing both of those with one, if they're upgrading one or the other, or if they're looking to make a whole new route and that those two are gonna stay where they're at as is. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna learn some more this afternoon talking to them, I know that.
Okay.
Now, the one north of 30, it's a mile and a half north, I believe, or
Right.
something like that.
Give or take, yeah.
They have got a pole along 218 at the old, well, it's not back like the rest of them. It's closer to the road at the old fence line. If you go down there, you can see it. It's as close to the highway as the old fence line was. They didn't move it back, they put in new poles, but they never moved it. And the line south of 30, that goes through our farm, and they put new poles in, I don't know how many years ago, it's probably been 5 years now at least, where they put new poles in. They walk that every summer. They've never bothered our crops, but they've got the right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't even put in new poles everywhere,
No, just where they needed to.
but some of them poles are pretty old. They're probably original poles. And I don't know what the stuff is, but they drilled them and they put this stuff in there. And then it boils out over the summer and keeps those poles in good shape. But
Move on.
I don't know how that's all gonna work.
Yeah.
Okay.
North of 30.
On page 1 of your secondary,
Okay.
of your expenses,
Mm-hmm.
our page 1, you've got,
Hopefully our pages are the same. If not, I'll figure it out pretty quickly, Rick.
well, there's a $500,000 here, which is $250,000 increase over last year. Is that the Lewis Bottoms project?
No.
No? So it's for asphalt and concrete.
Asphalt and concrete, and actually it works great to say probably asphalt and concrete, even though that line,
Yeah.
from a Cody standpoint, is more asphalt. With the Highway 30 lighting project,
Yes.
we are extending the intersections. and
So
paving.
that's Highway 30 intersection.
Big share of that is gonna be there, because they just had reminded me of that, with the updated costs, and their estimate was a little underestimate. I know that, the intersections between, the next stretch that they do between 11th Avenue and 16th Avenue, I think was gonna be with that, contract, or that bid letting there last fall. Instead of being less than $200,000, it's gonna be over $200,000 for those intersections. So, that was the indication of the increase.
Okay.
For Lewis Bottom Road, actually, in the last 2 days, what I have been strongly thinking about is using some of the regional SDPG money that we get earmarked for Benton County to use towards that.
Okay.
Because some of those project costs out there have exceeded some of our estimates, and as well as the time difference between doing it, the money that we had set aside to do what was originally estimated as that whole project cost has been pretty much used up.
Okay.
So instead of trying to utilize local money, I was gonna look at some regional and farm market money to look at improving that surface out there.
That's not included in here.
This would not be part of the local budget, that would be part of the DOT budget or the region. And short of sitting down and talking to Lynn County a little bit, it might be better to do it as a joint project and take that all the way to Lewis Bottom. It's sort of Lewis Bottom, or Lewis Access, I think is what runs north and south, between Center Point and Pale plant. But rather than terminate that as a hard surface road at the county line,
Right.
Lynn County has a seal coat, but I know they would be receptive to looking at improving that.
Okay. Which would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So that's not in here.
This would not be part of the local budget.
Okay, very good. And just because I don't know, a couple other questions, general questions.
Mm-hmm.
What is the union wage increase percentage?
That has yet to be decided.
Okay. All right.
Their contract expires the end of June. And I would anticipate here in the next few months, maybe even less than that, that they would be getting a hold of us and setting up dates to do initial offers, as well as working with HR and law firm that you guys utilize with unions to do. So that is yet to be decided.
Okay, very good. All right. Otherwise, non-union, do you have a percentage in there that you use?
I increased salary activities on this budget about 6%.
Okay.
My initial run, I had actually done 4%. I went back and did 6% when I did a little research and was looking at some of the cost of living numbers that are out there right now, and submitted it as a 6% increase. While we're talking, I guess, about that specifically, I would like you to consider that if you're gonna do across the board increases like is typically or done frequently in the past, I would like to pull the Cummings out separately and look at making it an additional increase there. We started that out because of an initial position, new person. She's caught on. She helps out the auditor's office significantly with payroll, because we do a lot of that input that they do for all the other departments themselves. And she's currently at 39,655, I think. I'd like that to increase to 44,000.
I will agree, she's caught on really well.
And I usually come before you and ask to pull somebody out separately, but I am asking this year. Now, if you were to compare that to the percentage deputy wise in the auditor's office, it's still below that number. If you look at other office managers in other counties around the area, working in that direction is getting much closer.
Very good.
And from that standpoint, I guess if you jump to page 2, about 3/4 of the way down there, because it gets cut off a little bit, but salaries of regular EMP, you got principal, and then you got secretary that's cut off, and then you got office, which would be manager. That's where I showed that 44,000.
Okay.
So $62,500 would be half of engineers. I do half of it in administration and half of it in engineering.
Thank you.
But I think from increase from this year to next year on page 2, I mean, other than mentioning those two, I think that it's more or less just the estimated increase on. We'll make sure that is the clearing account, but for the most part, what I'm increasing is salaries and cost of materials.
Yeah, cost of materials is, yeah, I noticed that back in the aggregate, for example, you know, which is on page 4.
Yes.
Fourth from the bottom, yeah, it's a pretty good increase, so.
The
But
quarries typically, beginning of the year, increase their price, whatever their cost increase is for various reasons, you know.
Right.
You've got a lot of labor costs and equipment costs with crushing the material. This, in 2022, might not have been the only time in my 30-plus years, but it comes close to being one of few where they felt the need for an increase mid-year. And so there was a price increase in July, also on top of the January cost. So from a budgeting standpoint, you know, the cost of rock today, I don't know if it was first of the month or one day this week, you know, it was a January date, the price was going up, is over 10% increase from where it was a year ago. So, yes, that's why that number jumped
Sure.
from 1.8, was it, to 2.1 almost.
just out of curiosity, it's kind of like using the recycled asphalt, you know, which became at first was very inexpensive, but now it's right up there. Recycled concrete, I understand that that's become kind of a popular substitute for some driveways and that kind of stuff. Probably just doesn't hold up like the road rock, does it?
It might, but with that, you're gonna end up with some more jagged edges that are harder, and they're gonna be a lot tougher on tires, particularly highway speed or travel speed versus driveway speed.
Okay, because I understand there's a little cost savings.
You know, when Benton County redid the road between 218 and Shelburne, that whole concrete was all recycled, pulled right back down, and was used as a subbase.
As a base, yes.
New concrete, but, and drove on it during that project, but, it wanted, the second thing is it doesn't generate a lot of fines, so you don't have a lot.
Oh,
You
it does
don't-
not?
Well, it does, but it doesn't bind back together as well.
Oh,
It's
okay.
gonna be more like kind of marbles. I mean, it's gonna hold up for low traffic areas when you start running a fair amount of traffic on it, and it's gonna wheel rut quickly and easily.
Okay. I was wondering what the pros and cons would be.
Mhm.
Thank you. I noticed that on in here, page 7, equipment costs, pretty significant jump there.
There is, and half of that's already spoken for, allocated, you know. We bought 2 more graders
Right.
instead of 1, so both of those have been, one of them has been delivered.
Okay,
Because of some supply chain unexpectancies, the wings for those machines just came in a week ago, I think, and so they've got the wing on one of the machines. And I think we're swapping machines either today or tomorrow, but they're gonna put the wing on the other one. They also have another customer or two that they've gotta do the same with. And then we're paying gonna pay rent on that one through the balance of this year, and then whatever's remaining from the rent payment, would be our purchase price after July 1. And we've also got 2 single axle trucks on order.
Right.
And new boxes to put on them that are gonna arrive after the first of July, that would be part of that. Now, we also have we have ordered, but I probably have a need for 4 pickups or close to that, that probably need to be rotated, and depending on how easy that's going to work right now, I know from a fleet standpoint, there's very few fleet pickups available, and from information I received from back from the dealers, that fleet's trying to, people that typically buy fleet vehicles trying to buy regular vehicles, dealerships could get penalized if they are selling those to fleet customers.
Wow.
So hopefully the inventory and supply chain and all the other issues that are out there slowly more quickly start getting back to normal. But yeah, we just had to replace the engine in Brandy's pickup here just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. That would be one I would probably still look at replacing, but we just keep that one around as one of our vehicles we keep as a spare, and utilize to pick up junk and transport, the blade operators use between the shop and their facility, when their machine's brought to the main shop.
Well, just above that equipment line, you've got construction maintenance, that went down quite a ways, from 510 to 330.
I had those 2 lines together, Rick. The motor vehicle new equipment and construction maintenance are actually new equipment. And I use, for my differences, the motor vehicle I use is actually licensed vehicles. And then the construction maintenance being the non-licensed vehicles, motor graders, excavators, type of deal.
Okay.
That's just how I do it on this line. I think from a, whether they're labeled exactly right, but I think from the accounting number standpoint, that would be the difference,
Okay.
so to speak.
I was just kind of questioning, the maintenance and construction and maintenance going down, that's not the trend. So.
No, that 330 is going to represent the one maintainer, whereas last year I think it was a maintainer and was it the balance on that wheel loader, I think. But I generally, in my head, look at those 2 numbers added together and I'm saying,
Okay.
$875,000 for new equipment, whether it be pickups, heavy-duty trucks, motor graders, wheel loaders, all inclusive of secondary roads equipment.
Okay. And I've got one question here. Do you have any monies figured in for this dirt road south of town? There was an estimate for $15,000 to get some survey work done, etc. Is there any room in this budget?
It's not identified specifically in this budget, but for, because from sometimes things being weather dependent, there's a lot of estimating that goes on with secondary roads.
Okay, yes.
Wintertime, you want to tell me what next winter is going to be like, it'd be really nice. I wasn't sure what to expect this winter. It's certainly not over with, but
Right.
Yesterday.
So
you could
far,
have been-
so good.
Yesterday, you could have been outdoors in a sweatshirt, and if you were working, probably could have been comfortable doing so.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that storm that came before Christmas, that was, 5, 6 continuous days of fighting that
Mhm.
blast.
Right.
And we've gotten a nice break since, and so, all guys are busy doing other things, so
Okay.
your weekly cost of employees still stays the same, but there are some snow removal costs that you don't have right now,
Right.
so. Feedback from that project, certainly that is, in my point, tech aspect needed to help consider moving forward.
Right.
But there has always been a request that additional parties help participate in that cost.
Exactly.
And so I've not asked that consultant to perform that task yet, but.
No, I get that. And I also understand that, we have asked for participation in even the survey, the study. And so I just want to make sure that if others step up to the plate, that we can too. So that's all that is.
Let me go related to that, page 3.
Page 3? you
Yep.
said? Okay.
7 lines up from the bottom.
All thumbs here. Yeah,
120,000,
right,
up from 110.
correct.
That is my line item for consultant fee costs.
Okay.
So, I'm anticipating some additional consulting fee costs with, right now I've got one consultant working on 8 bridges, I think it is, and I have talked to a different consultant that I know, all 3 of the small firm that is doing just smaller type projects. I've given them 4 smaller bridges to survey and design here. So there's gonna be some added costs there too, but I
Sure.
would say, to answer your question, I would come up with a way for it to fit now.
Yeah, as long as other entities are willing to step up to the plate. Yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure that we, yeah. Yep, because I know it's coming, that request again, so, yeah.
The road south of town here that you, let's see, it would be to the right, it's dead end. We paved that,
Seal coated it.
yeah. Are those, on their property taxes, or how is that?
That number is being about to be calculated, and then those property owners will be given the opportunity to either pay for it in installments during property tax time, or pay for it all in one lump sum up front. I'm working on that, and so we've got a lot of that information put together and just cross-referencing it because we were doing work south of 30, on 32nd Avenue about the same time, and I want to make sure that those costs are separated.
And I presume we would honor the interest rate that we had quoted at that time, even though interest has changed. I didn't have any other questions, John.
Hey,
Good.
very bottom,
Yes.
what are you planning on?
Oh, I missed one, didn't I? Missed the big one.
Two major expenses.
Okay,
And I'm not sure with the most recent one you and I have been talking about, a possible extension of the main shop here in Benton, to add some office space, moving the engineer and the office manager out there. The maintainer shed outside of Blairstown, is not worth repairing. It needs to be replaced. The question is, do I replace it at that location or some other location?
Is that figure gonna be enough?
You don't know.
to
I
do
don't know
both
enough about
projects?
buildings right now, and it's, knowing how busy some contractors still are, I'm not sure what type of time frame a person would get that building out, that it might be a multi-year expense, and that this is a start, you know?
To throw something against the wall, see if it sticks. I get it, yeah.
When that road was regraded back in the, '60s, that generated that shape of property between the railroad and the road where that shed stands now. It's an odd shape type of deal. It's worked well for us from a location for a shed. It has flooded a couple times in there, which is why the baseboards of that building are completely shot right now. Even though it is probably sound from 2 feet up from the building up, it's, everything below that really needs to be replaced, and the metal around it is getting thin. It's more than just a shell replacement type of deal. I think it needs to be a full replacement. It couldn't continue to work well. I think I'm trying to weigh the thoughts of whether, because the Belle Plaine maintainer shed is south of the railroad tracks, does not have sewer to it. We have a pit in that building that we just pump out as needed. Would it be something to consider combining those two in one building, and would something in Luzerne serve a purpose well from that standpoint? I don't know. It's a thought that I've had. Benton County has functioned well over the years with single motor grader sheds scattered around the county to cover the rural areas year-round. There's also benefits to having a small group working in one building too.
Definitely. Yeah, sometimes many hands make light work. Yeah.
I mean, Blairstown location we have used to store some recycled material. I mean, right now we have broken concrete down there that has come out from patching projects that we turned around and reused to address washouts at bridge locations, culvert locations. We currently have a pile of recycled asphalt down there right now also, so a lot of times we have a loader down there. So if I put a new building up down there, it would make more sense for me to do probably a 2-bay building than a 1-bay building, just because I have a second piece of equipment down there frequently, and it would be nice to put it indoors to eliminate vandalism and also aids in extending the life of that vehicle.
Right.
A piece of equipment is not going to have to sit outside.
County don't own no property in Blairstown.
Well,
No, not that I'm aware of.
I don't know who owns the old lumber yard.
It ain't county.
I think it probably could be bought if somebody wanted to buy it. It's not being utilized now at all. Just junk sitting on it. And I don't know about the elevator on the north side either. I know that Ty's bought some of it, but he hasn't Yeah, there's still drain there.
He's renting it out.
West of the street. There's still, the co-op still got means in there, in that bin. And I don't know. And there is ground north of town. I don't know if it's available or not. And that floods north of town. Not very often, but it
And right
does.
above that, Myron, right, the steel and iron related stuff.
Yep, I got that one highlighted too, I was just gonna bring that up myself, it's, metal culvert purchases,
That's what I was guessing.
and this current year, or I mean, this past year, that price is going up, and, I hoping it comes back down some, but it's still gonna be impactful, at least for a while yet.
But like on new driveways, it's kind of a pass through, right? The farmer pays for the new, or whoever, not, the farmer, but
The driveway
New
permit
house.
includes the cost of the new
Yeah.
culvert.
usually the only time the county gets hooked is if they gotta replace something that's bad, right?
From a driveway standpoint, yes. Now, we
Okay.
replace a number of roadway pipes with metal pipes throughout
Yep.
the year also, and
Yep.
those are gonna be an expense. I mean, all of them are gonna still show up on that line there. Because you're not taking that payment off on the expenditure side.
Now, on this budget here, do you have figured in here for a new engineer, if we could ever magically appear one?
Your assistant?
Yes,
Yes.
you have it figured in.
Page 3.
Okay.
If you go a third of the way down, you'll see that solid line across there.
Yep,
You go a couple lines below that, there's 62,500, that's half of what I proposed on engineer. The two numbers below that, the first one would be an engineering technician, and the second one would be an assistant. I put both in there, hoping that maybe I might find one or the other, or both yet, so.
Yeah.
Whether my numbers are high enough or not, but they're in the budget right now. We don't feel they're too low, I mean that they're terribly off, but I know the way wages have changed here in the last year particularly. There's some numbers there to start. I mean, if it's a partial year, those numbers might be 100% accurate too. It's might be more correct than full.
that's pretty well all the questions I got. You only went up about 700,000, or looked to me.
Well, I thought it was more than that. Looks like we're about 1.3. Just short of it. Was 12,427 and change, and the request is 13,700.
So most of that would be in construction, because I had current year, the construction budget was 1.8, a little over $1.8 million, and I have submitted to you a construction budget of $2.3 million. Those are the items on page 1 minus the bottom 5 lines. I know with all of those bridges, I can't tell you right now which ones are gonna get developed the quickest, which ones are gonna be on a road system that could be paid for through the farm market DOT accounting process, or whether they're gonna need to be paid for through Benton County. But knowing that a number of them will be on the local system, the 1.175 million was some rough estimating I did for 3 of those 12.
Then you've got something in here, I just have to think of it, for the new lights at the light, Luzerne corner and Blairstown corner, when 30 is actually done.
That would be farther out than fiscal year 24, I believe.
Really, you don't think they'll have it done this fall? Like you thought?
Let me back up. Blairstown and Luzerne should be done this.
Right.
um,
Estimated.
It would be Keystone, Bell Plain, that would be 25 or 26 probably.
Because we won't have to light the 21 intersection, that'll be all the state.
Correct.
If you don't have nothing actually figured in, you think? That ain't gonna be cheap if we go with steel poles and. You said you could get a grant maybe.
There's grants available that would, or I know of a grant that we used at Watkins
Okay.
that paid for 55% of the cost.
Okay.
Um,
I'm just trying to think ahead if I'm around yet.
And if costs come, Benton County has been fortunate over the years with a lot of bridge culvert projects coming in under estimates. There seems to be a number of contractors that like working in Benton County. And if that continues, that savings in itself might produce itself in fiscal year 24 easily enough. Depending on the timing exactly, you may, it still may be, you may still have some costs possibly that are post June 30th of 24, I don't know.
The box culverts north of Newhall now, they're scheduled for replacement if I remember right?
In the near future,
Yeah. And then after they're done, that's when you're gonna repave that, right? Paint it off and.
that's my thought process today.
That'd probably be culverts in 23. You remember? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Those things I want to review and look at heavily between now and the end of March,
Yeah.
probably mid of March, and then I will bring that all to you due to the DOT on the 15th of April.
Okay.
Not wanting to wait till the exact last minute to do
Your
that.
5-year plan, I loaned it to somebody and I don't remember who I loaned it to.
I got a copy if you want.
Who you do?
Yeah, it's up in the cupboard.
All right.
Adjust things a little bit. I mean, everything that's in years 1 through 4 are usually things that need to be done, but whether or not something happens that maybe stuff in year 2 makes more sense to do in year 3 or 4 because of something else happening or being concerned. And my year 5 stuff is usually stuff that needs to be done but doesn't have an urgency.
Are you gonna replace all the culverts in the Blairstown blacktop when you do that?
That would be my plan, because I don't think any of them that I remember looking at would make sense to leave as is.
Yeah.
It looks like revenue's about the same.
Revenue, yeah, road use tax isn't going up much according to DOT's forecasters, 2021 money. Likewise, based on the number of bridges we do is depending upon the bridge replacement reimbursement we get back. Um, So I didn't highlight anything that I wanted to mention. The only thing I was gonna mention, I guess, on revenues that doesn't show up on the sheet that I got. I don't know how, where Haley gives that to you or not, but from a secondary roads levy standpoint, the general basic, the current year we are receiving $273,992. They dropped that down to 270,000 even. The transfers. And then from rural services, currently we're transferring $3,100,753. I just rounded that off to $3,100,000, basically leaving the transfer amount the same for fiscal year 24 as fiscal year 23. Secondary road still has a balance. And so to pull some of that balance down, because we did do a lot of construction work last fiscal year. Still need a balance, but I don't need as big a balance as what I'm seeing when I was looking at that June 30th fund balance in the secondary roads. That's what I thought. I think that was a formula of some sort to begin with.
Yeah, it's a percentage, it is, I have it in the spreadsheet, so we can kind of look at, like last year's, 'cause it's kind of fluctuating.
Well, I think when we first passed the local option sales tax, the discussion was probably a set percentage of the total amount collected or whatever. Initially, it was down to the pennies and down to the cents. Based on that number, I've just thrown a number in the budget that's been 260, 265 here recently. But I'm not sure if that was part of the minutes or if that was just part of the discussion that was handled with previous.
It used to be 40%. I don't know if that's something we negotiate, I mean, we look at what the ballot wording was, but.
But it was always done at the end of the fiscal year.
Yep.
And it was done on a percentage basis.
And then we kind of did lump sums, so
And
yeah.
we've been doing lump sum here the last few years. And whether the lump sum mirrors that amount or comes very close, I guess.
It's close, but yeah, I did ask Brian on that, once, so. If we want to do an adjustment, he said we just have to do board's action for resolutions.
Now, whether or not that changes in the future, I don't know. I say that because the last legislative session, there was some talk about the local option sales tax becoming a state tax, and that the first 3/8 of a cent of that 1% would go to conservation. And that those that have local option sales tax would be backfilled what they had, but local option sales tax, as you have passed it to use moving forward, would change if that bill resurfaces this legislative session. There is talk that it will. That's what's kind of what I've been told this week, and we had that discussion
It's in our auditors.
yesterday with engineers legislative committee. The other thing that we talked about yesterday in that committee that I think I overheard you guys talking about with Melinda Tuesday is the $500 all systems overweight permit.
Yes.
Benton County has not opted into that permit yet.
Really?
Yes. None of the bridges on the rock roads have been analyzed for 90,000 pounds. So I have no idea what damage that permit could cause. Now, talking with a local driver, I understand how convenient that permit would be. The permit does expect the driver to look at that website and make sure they're traveling on routes that they're allowed to with that permit. But rock roads in the spring and structures that haven't been analyzed for the heavier weights to date are the concern from the county's level as to whether they're opting in or not. Those that have opted in, I think, are being selective because you can select which routes you would allow it on. I have traditionally allowed those type of loads on the paved system in Benton County and have tried to do an annual permit accordingly. Whether I can fully do that from an enforcement standpoint, I don't know. But the paved structures have been analyzed for some heavier loads, and so I'm comfortable with that heavier weight. Now, when you start talking the number of axles on a truck, you've got 6 axles running 90,000 is automatically legal anyway. You've got 7 axles, 96,000 is legal. The all systems overweight permit would allow 89,600 pounds on 5 axles, very similar to the governor's proclamation. And from a posting standpoint, Iowa generally looks at the 80,000 legal load or the legal dump truck load, and you post your sign if it wouldn't meet that legal load. They're not analyzed for their maximum weight carrying capacity and posted accordingly.
So basically, if you load 90,000, you gotta figure out how to get to a hard surface road.
Well, a few years ago, we went through this. I remember about like the wood chip or logs. The logs it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the logging industry.
Yeah.
I'm done with it.
I'm done too.
Okay,
Thank you, Myron,
you're welcome.
and good morning, Ben.
Keep you on schedule. You did pretty good Tuesday, it looked like. Presentations can sometimes get lengthy, I've noticed over the years, but
Do you need to be on Tuesday since we're off Monday, so I know
I don't think so.
I won't bother you then.
Okay, Ben, what you got?
What do you want to start at?
Well, your expenses. I see that you got a couple line items that are really jumping. Page 1.
Okay, which line items?
Well, let's just start at the top. You got planning and management. Went from 42 up to 70. Yeah,
For the GIS line item? Are you talking about?
yes, that is GIS. I'm sorry. Yes.
I think I upped that one because of,
Is that for the art service stuff?
I think that was more for the ARC server stuff, and just that way we had the cushion in there for anything that would come up with GIS, and I didn't know for sure if there was.
For what's that? Art?
Our GIS server that we use through ArcMap, it's called.
Oh, art.
It's our platform that like Larry in our office use to edit and do all the data with all of our layers.
Okay. So
And some of the
that's,
increased cost with like, Schneider has gone up, people view their costs have gone up, everything.
so is this for new equipment or
Well, not
something?
necessarily, it's just kind of our monthly contracts and our,
Really?
I mean, because we have to upload data and all that, and it does
To
cost,
go up $28,000?
everything's going up.
Whoa. Okay. That's pretty significant, okay? And then when you get to Department 52, salaries, are you looking for additional help or
I
something?
am looking for an additional employee for my department. Basically what the plan is I am looking to expand my department to hire a system administrator because I know the sheriff's office has expressed interest with me taking over their IT. And what my plan is to work on getting a system admin hired here in July, or start receiving applications here in July or June, July. Getting them hired on, getting them well-versed with, basically over the first year, well-versed with the county stuff, like the courthouse, secondary roads, the service center, conservation, that way. I'm not, when we do take over the sheriff's office in a year time, I don't want to be overly stressed where I'm being pulled in two different directions, where I can have someone who's trained up and familiar with how everything works here in case there's a big fire over there that I am stuck with putting out and trying to put out things basically so I'm not pulled
Sure.
both ways.
Okay. So that's basically for 2 full-time people.
No, just one.
You're not involved in that?
Huh?
You're not part of that?
The budget part?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in there.
Okay, I was hoping so.
So I put in there for basically kind of like how everyone else has done it. I put in for myself to get a 30% raise.
A what?
A 30% raise?
30?
Yes. Considering I would be taking on another department. Last year I took on conservation, and the amount that I asked was basically the same that you're giving everyone, so we're going to start high and work our way where we have an agreement. And I kind of assumed under that way that, well, when I was hired, Todd Wiley had stated that if I took over at the sheriff's office, I would be compensated accordingly. Then with my employee review, I exceeded the expectations. I had conservation on my umbrella the last year and a half, 2 years. And in the past 2 years, we've added more employees and departments that I have to be required to support. So that was basically no justification.
Okay.
And then with the consumer price index increase in there too, so.
Sure. And then down in the IT hardware.
There
That
is
a lot like.
basically what, well, I'm replacing the server infrastructure at the courthouse. And from what Haley and I have been doing the past couple of years is I've been putting about $20,000 away and saving it. So that extra $100,000 increase on there is for the major $100,000 comes out of that we've been putting away and saving. So that way it's not a gotcha. That was when I first started, that was something that was a gotcha. But one time then Todd Wiley had asked me to work on putting away money, so that's what I had started doing. So that way it's not a huge
Sure.
burden for you.
Okay. Well, the other items are gonna kind of fall in line, like the FICA and health insurance, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, yeah.
I think the only other one you guys
Yeah.
usually ask about is, which one is it? Let's see, I gotta work the spreadsheet here too. Well, IT services, there's at least 88,939 out of that comes out of law stuff. That's for covering our code with Tyler, the subscription service and all their fees they charge for their software, the maintenance and
Yeah,
And
so
the IT
instead of,
services actually went down a scotch on here.
Yeah.
cause years ago, the recorder treasurer audit, we had our own, but it's all ours.
Sure.
Kind of like how we look in printers, phones, and all that stuff together, just one umbrella to make it easier for auditor's office with doing invoice or paying bills.
I
mean, there are some departments-
Where are you planning on putting the second guy, in your office too?
That's kind of a discussion that we need to have about where we're gonna put them.
Getting back to the IT hardware, you've been putting 20,000 away every year since Todd Wiley.
It's been, yeah,
Yeah,
You got 100,000 sitting there and you're asking for another 100,000 beside that?
no. I just put it in the budget, so I had the spending authority.
so like, kinda like those that do with the vehicles every year.
Yeah, they finish it.
And then the year you want to spend it, you have to put the full amount.
Got it,
Okay.
got it.
So I'm not asking for an additional on top.
Got it.
Yeah,
I got it.
but it will
Okay.
look like a ginormous
Yeah.
increase.
Yeah, it looks like a, wow.
I got
Kinda
it.
like Shelby with the hand.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, I got it. Understood.
How big a project is the sheriff's office gonna be? That looks to me, that could be.
From my planning perspective, what I would like to do is, all of us IT and GIS people, we have a group with, basically kind of like the assessor, the auditors have their group, we have an ICIT group, that's what it's called. I've been on some of them where we go around and do, basically audits of the counties. We go in and figure out everything that's wrong that we can find within a 24-hour period and basically write up a report that says, here's everything that's wrong that you're doing that you should have fixed as a high priority emergency, like, things that should be fixed like before they leave. What I'm planning on doing is reaching out to the IT director that's in charge of that and working on getting it scheduled sometime to have them come in and do an audit at the sheriff's office, because they had come in and did an audit at the courthouse before I was hired, and that helped me out immensely with giving me here's a list of things to work off of. And since I'm kind of going into the sheriff, yeah, it's computer IT stuff, but there's certain things they do over there differently than other departments. Hoping to get some of their IT directors that do maintain sheriff's office to go in, do an audit, write me up a report so I know, okay, here's where I need to start. Here's a starting point. And I'm sure after the fact it'll be, there was things I've kept finding the courthouse little random issues here and there that I would find, a year or two later, like, oh, well, that's why this doesn't work, it's because this is misconfigured or this or that. And you're always finding something that isn't configured right, it seems like. And usually those audits are really inexpensive, I'll put it that way. I think usually when we do a full county audit, I think it's like $5,000 that we charge the county.
Last time we did it.
And that includes like all of our mileage, meals, hotels. That's literally the flat rate that they charge. And I'm sure if we do just the sheriff's office, it'll be a little pricey, I'm assuming.
Is what year did we hire you? That's, we had that one.
2016, and you had to do the audit.
Yep, that's who helped us do our county one and figured out what we needed, and then they helped us hire them.
Gary, have you ever stopped in and seen the IT office at the sheriff's office?
Server room.
It's a whole room.
You need to do it.
I know it's big. It's on the north side of the hall, isn't it?
If you want, I can take you over there if you want to see it again.
Or even in our courthouse basement, all the stuff we have.
Yeah.
You were in there when I first started, but things have changed quite a bit in there as well, so.
Now, the basement, you don't have no problem with heating down there, do you? During the summer, like the sheriff's office does?
No.
Sheriff's office gets too warm in the computer room.
Oh, there are air conditioners running right now.
We have an air conditioner that runs in the basement all year round, but I don't think it barely runs in the winter time, because that office gets nice and chilly. I mean, the boiler, the radiator, there's turned all the way off, so it gets pretty warm, or not pretty warm, pretty cool in there in the winter, but if you wanted to, I can pull your report, and I can give you a whole graph of the temperature in the server room, the humidity over the whole entire year.
What do you know?
Because I also have a device that monitors the temperature of the sheriff's office, because they don't have anything over there that's, or they didn't have anything over there that was monitoring it. So I'm like, well, we better put something in that way in case some weekend something happens, air conditioner dies, and it gets up to 95 degrees in there.
So what's the optimum temperature for that stuff?
It kind of varies on some of the equipment. I mean, back in the 80s, 90s, early or late 90s, early 2000s, I mean, a lot of it was, strict like 65, 70 degrees, and anymore you can inch up to 85, 90s, kind of hitting the point where you need to start getting worried. But I mean, there used to be a lot of data centers that run them at like 60 degrees or less, but you don't run that cool anymore. I mean,
Well, it would make sense to, if the room temperature was, let's say 80 degrees, then the inside of different components would be much higher than that.
mm-hmm. So and anymore, your computer components are basically they get smaller and smaller and more compact, which means they generate less heat for the most part. I'll put it that way. But
Did the sheriff's office ever get all the cable cleaned out of there? You know, when I was in there, it was a spaghetti mess hanging on the ceiling.
I think they've done some work with it in there to get it cleaned up.
Yeah, I think I was over there in November, end of November.
I think some of it was cleaned up. I know I've been in there a couple times and like find cables that are not hooked up to anything, so I'm just
Yeah.
pulling them through.
Seems like they always said, put cables in there, but they never took nothing out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Same, that's one of my, I mean, over at the courthouse, that's one of my goals is if I find old cables, let's get them out of here because that just causes confusion and issues.
Now, I guess the other question was, totally different again, the ARPA funds, you were gonna rewire the courthouse, if I remember right?
Yep.
You got this stuff ordered or started?
They had ordered this stuff and they delivered it about a month ago.
Okay.
They delivered, what was it, 35,000 foot of Cat 6A cable for the courthouse and all the equipment for it. He ordered it when we approved it, and it took almost 5 months to get here for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he was kind of in communication with me on when I wanted to get started, and I kind of left it up to him. I go, spring, summer's fine with me.
Okay.
And I told him, I'm like, I kind of let offices know, like, we're gonna have to coordinate with you on, we may have to close for a morning or something to switch everything over in the meantime, where we literally are pulling the old cords out, hook the new ones in, but we're gonna try to do it with the least amount of downtime.
Okay.
There might be some ceiling tile popped out, shuffling, drilling, and all that stuff, but
You don't have to do like the clerk of court or the judges up
No.
there. So, only thing you have to probably do is, you still have to do, the attorney's offices, right?
say that office was wired up like before I had gotten there pretty recently, so that, we're not doing anything on third floor that needs to be
Really?
wired, so it's literally second floor, first floor,
In the basement.
and then some in the basement.
Okay. But the servers are in the basement where you're starting from to run everything up.
You know,
Got it.
and most of them come through all the vent shafts, that's where all the cabling usually comes through. And my main thing is in the basement, they're gonna put hangers up to actually, like hangers for the cables, that way they're not all strapped to the pipes down there, because, well, that's one thing that I know annoys Rick like none other is all the stuff zip tied and strapped up to the pipes, and we'll try making it a lot better, but we'll see where we can get with it. It'll look a lot nicer, just have all network cables on one, that way in case they're trying to replace a water line or a steam pipe or something like that, you don't have to fish your way through
Okay.
50, 60 cables that are wrapped around it and
Sounds good.
end up severing one on accident or something, so.
If you have enough cable left over, if in a gray world, addition built on the secondary roads.
Well, we do have the cable already there for secondary roads for what we have planned.
Okay.
And if we do what you're talking about, I think we should have enough cable to make it work, because I had it planned out to wire up all those individual workspaces, but I think we can make it work, or we might have to order, an extra roll or two, or we might have enough left over from when they get the courthouse done, that there's 3 boxes with 500 feet in them or something like that. I think we'll
Actually,
have
it'd be
enough.
less footage, but in the new addition, than.
Yeah, I think it would be.
everything all the way upstairs.
Yeah, I think it would be, especially if it's all close
Yep.
in one area, so.
Yep. Okay.
But yeah, I think we'll probably have to run some of them out. Maybe there's some wireless access points on the shop that we'll have to fix and clean up the wiring with, but we can figure it out.
Okay.
I think we'll be fine with what we have for cabling.
All righty.
I don't have any other questions.
I'm all done. You answered all mine.
Okay. Sounds good.
Would it be smarter for you to maybe advertise or whatever, maybe starting in the middle of May?
That's what I'm
Maybe
thinking,
get
maybe
somebody
get-
out of college.
I can do that too.
I don't wanna say what I'm thinking, but a smart person like you.
Are you gonna try for more GIS background at all?
I might have a little PAX done for a little bit of that. I just don't know. I mean, I'd love to have a GIS person, but not at this time.
But I mean,
I
like,
think
in
I'm-
your specs to see if they have some knowledge.
Yeah, if they have some knowledge, or they can
Help us.
go and do the training course from Schneider like I did, and at least have some sort of knowledge where it's at least a little bit of additional help with GIS stuff.
You
At
know,
least that way they'll be familiar with it too.
if a person waits till graduation time, if I was a student, I'd like to have that lined up ahead of time. I'd like to have it lined up before I graduate.
For job. Or you could reach out to colleges too about job shadowing or something.
Say, I don't know, it might be. I'm not knocking a college grad, I'm just saying I might be looking for someone with like
A little more experience.
more on the job experience rather than, okay, I went to college, got the certificate, but
Yeah, that's what I was just saying.
I would
Somebody
probably be
can
more
run a
open.
cable and put a plug on it besides turn the computer
Yeah.
on.
I'd be more apt to hire someone from out of college for help desk unless they've got like very extensive like cybersecurity experience or something like major that shows up on a resume. Like, oh yeah, I want you because of this, but
So taking over the sheriff's department, getting us back to that a little bit, that ain't gonna happen for a year, do you think?
I don't think so. I just want to get when I get
I'm
the
getting a
person.
different feeling from the sheriff, okay?
Because I also let him know like it's not going to be a jump in right away thing because I don't want to have.
The way I'm getting the drift is he wants it sooner than later.
Well, I'm not going to go for that.
Is he
So.
contracted with Railpac though? Does he have to?
He doesn't have like a yearly contract. I think he just buys a block of hours and says, "Here, fix
Yeah.
our stuff."
They've been having problems again, I guess. That's what I was keep.
I mean, I could probably get my toes in and get some stuff rolling in there, but it's more I don't want to take over like right away. I think I can start getting rolling in. Like,
See, I told him you can't do it because you don't have anything figured, whatever you wanna get.
Yeah, I don't have
Help
anything.
out, you don't have that in your budget
no,
now.
no, I don't. I didn't really budget for anything that I know over there because I don't know.
That's right.
If I knew more, I would say, yeah, let's.
I guess.
I mean, I could work on getting access to their server and, figuring out what stuff is and how their network is laid out at least. That way I can,
But just throwing it out there. If,
just from my understanding, there is no documentation over there, which is not really good. But.
yeah. But if you guys do throw in together, I guess, kinda like the way it is now, they gotta pay for whatever happens.
Mhm.
I mean, you can supply the labor, they're gonna have to supply the parts, or pay for the parts.
Yep.
So,
Then we could do that where he has his own
You know what I
budget for
mean?
his
Yeah.
own computer hardware and stuff, and that way
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it, but I can tell him like, hey, here's what I'm planning, this is what I would say go in there for.
okay.
I would think that's how we probably do it, that way it's,
I don't want no part of it. Not my expertise.
cause I know there's a, before even touching anything over there, I know there's a certification, or a CJIS certification that I have to take, or basically get before I, and CJIS is basically the FBI database search, so, and if I touch any computer, you have to have that before you can service anything, so.
Well, Ben's already proactive for over there, cause we get notifications and he's on top of it sometimes before they're
Yeah,
aware of it.
We put in a piece of software that does like log monitoring over there, and we get quite a few, we get some alerts for things over there, and sometimes I have to repeatedly email to get them addressed. But we do have a little bit of insight to what's going on.
Internal,
Internally, but not like, I mean, I don't have like full-on server monitoring to know like such and such server's down, or, you know, it's all the way fully patched or whatnot, but.
But they'll call us too, like if Ben's off or something, but he's not available, I'm on the backup, so I'll get those emails and they'll call. Cause they want us, they're wanting us to answer questions. And then the OCIO, as you
So,
know, look what happened to the airlines yesterday.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity, very important.
And then where you have like big firms like your COT that,
Yes, I was telling them that the other day, that's huge. Cause then they're all,
yeah, they're totally down.
totally down.
I mean, that was an update that was sent by their CEO.
Who's that again?
That COT, it was one of those companies that Lex and I obtained quotes from.
Oh, yeah, yes, okay, that's
They
right.
got, I'm pretty sure they got hit with ransomware and it took out most of, well, the way it appears, reading through the lines, is that it took out most of their stuff, or encrypted most of their stuff that was stored for counties, which I'm assuming the way it sounds like is they're keeping that stuff running but offline, so that way they can investigate, and they're spinning up brand new hardware and restoring backups to get everything back up and running, but that's the way I'm reading through the lines of what they were saying, so.
But even so, in those situations, we're gonna have our own copy of everything too, correct?
Mhm.
So-
Yeah, that was one of the things
I mean,
that we made sure of, that we could have our own copy of all the images, that way, I told her, I go, we'll throw them on a hard drive and put it in a safe deposit box somewhere, that way it's safe, and if,
Because it's not only that, it's county history, for what we're doing.
Okay, Ben.
okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, bud.
Please, look at any of those Senate files and stuff that are proposing
Yeah,
legislation, there's one right now for comp board.
yeah.
Okay, I'm told them to get the top board.
Yeah, they're trying to eliminate the compensation board, it didn't pass last year, but, it's going forward again this year. So then that would put all that back into your guys' court, for the elected officials also. Just throwing that out there for you. I was just reading up on.
I'm gonna slip out and get some water.
I'm gonna go to the restroom.
Okay, so we can take a
Do you guys wanna
10-minute break.
adjourn, or you have any remarks, because then
We
you're gonna go.
could adjourn, couldn't we? 'Cause
You're gonna go on your exam session.
yeah, okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Good idea. Thank you.